the continued need for reconciliation in our society. And I think I had assumed as a young man that by the time we got to this age, we'd be over that, we'd have this worked out. And we've been given reminders, especially in the last 5 years, that we are far from getting there as far as for racial reconciliation. In particular, and of course, in the issue that's also connected with it is with police accountability. How do we become and how do we show that we're a party of reconciliation? If we, being the party of that stands for life and standing for life for all, where do we fit into this issue? Anyone want to pop in? See, all right, Christy, we got Christy on.
Yeah, I think I said that I popped in and now I'm gathering my thoughts. I think this is a super important issue, and I'm kind of disappointed when I look around the American Solidarity Party and I do see not a quite as diverse group as I wish I did. So I think that's the first thing we need to do, and I'm not exactly sure how to do it. I don't want to be obviously too intentional about diversifying the party, but I also at the same time want to be intentional about that. I want to have it be more diverse, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, I guess beyond the optics of the party, there's also policies. And I know this last weekend, it was hard to hear Sean a little bit, but he has some really powerful ideas on how we need to reconsider our reform for incarceration, and as well as we have seen abuses for those who wear badges, and I have we have family members who wear the badge. And yet at the same time, I am also aware that we have some others who have done some horrendous things and have abused their power. So how do we balance keeping a place where our country is free and we are able to protect our laws, but then also to ensure that everyone is free? So I'm kind of throwing that out through there.
All right. I'll respond to that.
Sounds great, Joe.
All right. Yeah, at a couple different levels in response to what they were saying during the debate, Jeff, as far as the police violence, et cetera, is that the police violence merely a symptom. What we have done in essence through white flight and a number of other things is we have left a lot of people abandoned in our cities and stuck in these poverty loops, and they can't get out of them. And so our family, as an example, for 5 years, we moved from small town America into the heart of a gang war zone in the inner city to be part of a Catholic worker movement that was doing all kinds of outreach in order to help the people trapped in those cycles. And these were people that were moving from suburban Cleveland and from small town Ohio to live there to be a part of the solution. It's nothing short, I believe, of creating a Marshall Plan like we rebuilt Europe. I think there needs to be a Marshall Plan to rebuild the cities and to make it conducive for people to move back in and live in, to use our phraseology, solidarity with the poor, in order to increase property values, taxes, in order to help the infrastructure there, and at the same time to help these people. And so those 5 years that we spent in the city were extremely important in being able to see some of the systemics of this. Because every time a police officer walks around a corner in a gang war zone, he's confronted with another life and death situation. And sometimes, sure, these guys are going to snap. They're going to have all kinds of problems. They should be being paid about 5 times what they get paid in those inner cities. But that's not the answer. The answer is not just around a myopic looking at police violence. It's about how we as an electorate, as a collective, have left these people abandoned in those cities. And until that changes, and until you have leadership that will mobilize that kind of Marshall Plan and some other help, and people that have the guts to move back into those places in order to help, this is not going to change. It's like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic.
I know one of the parts about our party is to focus on keeping the community connected with our policies, that we don't just lead from top down. I will brag about Chattanooga. There's some things I can't brag about because we do have issues with violence, but I have met and interacted with several people who are, including our mayor, Burke, who are working very hard on keeping these communities in the hands of the community and not being taken over. So and also.
How's he doing that?
He's doing that through, one, he's getting out into the community. They are bringing people in who live in the community. They are working with the police force. They're in with the police force. They are constantly they're constantly meeting back and forth. They are showing transparency and accountability. And I don't envy him, because that's such a tough path, because you have to keep your citizens safe, but yet at the same time, you got to make sure that deck is not stacked against everyone else. And I think you did hit on an issue that there, for so many Americans, whether it's race or whether it is finance, or there's a variety of other issues, that the deck is stacked against them. And I think as members who stand for solidarity, I think we can be creative, but I guess what I want to point back to is pointing back to the community itself and connecting people with the community. I think is going to be key with that. Do you guys feel you're a part of your community's answers?
This is add an addendum to that, Jeffrey, and then Christy can speak or whatever. We went to Wichita, Kansas, and we researched. There was an ecumenical society there, churches all throughout the greater Wichita area, that created what were called go zones in the inner city of Wichita. They took 15-block areas and they didn't cordon them off, but they split them up and made small towns in the city. They had their own boards. They twinned churches in the suburbs with churches in the inner city. They twinned other outreach help from the suburbs into the inner city. What they did in essence was they created these small manageable towns, and then they brought in a whole lot of help in order to, again, help these people. It was tremendous. It is tremendously, tremendously successful. It's just like that Marillac clinic I was talking about at the beginning of our show here. That would work in every city in the country. And it's an excellent model, just an absolutely excellent model. So there are creative models out there right now that are working. We just need leadership who can point us in that direction and say, look, America, worked in Wichita, it will work anywhere.
Very good. We're about out of time. I can give a plug for a thing I think about attending in Atlanta next month. Of course, as you may be aware, this is an interesting anniversary. It's 400 years since the first slaves were brought to Jamestown. And at Ebenezer Baptist Church in downtown Atlanta, a very historic church, they're having a get-together of all people to talk very frankly about the history of what happened and how we move forward. And I believe that they are planning on that moving towards something in September, which is the actual 400th anniversary of that, for a time to move us to a point of reconciliation. I just add that as an aside. I'm thinking about being able to go, but I assume there's going to be other opportunities in our community as a moment to reflect that when we look back at our American history, and sometimes I look at the highlights that they teach in history class, but for so many, looking back at American history is a very painful history. And if we don't move towards reconciliation, I think we've done our future generations a disservice. Having said disservice, we're at that shot clock. Did you guys want to do another round, or you want to wrap it up here?
I'm fine with another round myself, but
All right. I'll see you on the other side.
all right.